Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-drift.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. It is Friday, and I'm your host, Joe Root, once again on Lighting the Void. Friday night, December the 13th. Friday the 13th on into the 14th. Tonight, our guest, Bob Frissell, joins us, and this one's going to go deep. We're going to talk about all things interdimensional consciousness. The website, too, as well, is bobfrissell.com. And I have been researching Bob today and listening to some of his talks, some of his discussions on other radio shows. And I got to tell you, man, this is going to be a good one. This is perfect for a Friday night. So Bob is the founder of the Breath Alchemy Technique and is a teacher of 36 years. And he's got plenty of books that are regarded as underground spiritual classics. So we're going to talk about that coming up shortly. The show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. Make sure you do that. Go get the tea and get all those impurities out of you. And another, you know what I wanted to say about this tea real quick too is some people think, well, not some people. I've just had an experience with somebody thinking that this is just like a detox thing and it's a one and done, but it's not. You got to keep drinking this stuff to keep this yak out of you. It's good for you. Go get it. GetTheTea.com. Also, AncientLifeOil.com, the best CBD oil on the planet, and Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've had any type of paranormal trauma or post-traumatic stress from a paranormal event, you can get a free session with Barbara at Metaphorical Archaeology. Give them a call at, let me get their number pulled up here, 214-995-3754. Also, have you guys been keeping up with UFO Seekers' new show? The Tim Doyle Show has been on. It comes on 7 days a week. And the newest show comes on 7 days a week at noon Pacific, right here on the Fringe FM, backed and supported by us, UFOseekers.com, at UFO Seekers on Twitter, and go check out their new season at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. So I want to jump right into this. And as I said before, Bob Frissell is the founder of the Breath Alchemy Technique and is a teacher of 36 years. His books regarded as underground spiritual classics. In addition to nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. He is the author of Something in This Book is True, and You Are a Spiritual Being Having a Human Experience. His books are published in 25 languages and are available in more than 30 countries. Musicians have credited the ideas presented in Frissell's books as a source of inspiration for their own creative work. This list includes bands like Tool. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Danny Carey and it looks like Gojira band. Now, Frissell has been a featured speaker at the Global Congress of Spiritual Scientists in Bangalore, India, the 4th annual Symbiosis Gathering of Yosemite, the Prophets Conference in Tulum, and many New Living expos. He has also appeared on numerous talk shows, including the Jeff Rense Program, Red Ice Radio, Far Out Radio, and has been a 3-time guest on Coast to Coast AM. And he's presented his workshops throughout North America, Australia, and Europe. But on a personal note, Bob is a nature enthusiast, and he loves to hike and all manner of things, and he likes cats, squirrels, ducks, wild turkey, deer, redwood trees, catch his eye constantly, and he lives in Sonoma, California. Man, that sounds beautiful. Beautiful country there where you live. Thanks for coming on the show, Bob.
Hey, hi, Joe. How you doing? It's great to be here.
I'm good. I'm good. I want to get down into this because, like I was telling you before the show started, I was listening to one of your interviews. And, man, this was back in 2011, and I can't think of the name of the show. But we brought up all of the subjects that you talk about, every single one of them that you were hitting on, and you had so much knowledge about it that I can't wait to talk about this. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the title of your book. Nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. Why would you title it that? That's interesting.
Well, that's a great question. We have to go back in the day, Joe, because Nothing in this book is true first came out in August of 1994. Yet it's also my brand new book, because what I have now is the 25th anniversary edition of the book, but it's completely revised. It has 10 completely new chapters. It has tons and tons of new and revised information. So basically, it's just a new book. But the title has worked so well for us. I felt that really the best move I could make would be to come out, 25th anniversary, it only happens once. And so, but to get to your question, we have to go back about 26 years ago when it came time to write a book. And let me be very clear that I wrote a book only because I was asked to write a book by a publisher. Now, that's a decision that I had made 4 years prior, when a client of mine, a Breath Alchemy client, came to me after a number of sessions and suggested that we co-author a book. And to tell the truth, it just freaked me out. I'm just thinking, I'm not an author. I don't know what to say. I can't even write an article. You're asking me to write a book? And so when she told me that she really did not have a publisher, she did mention she was an author, and she showed me the diary that she was keeping on her sessions. And she then went on to say that, well, I don't have a publisher for this, but what we would have to do is write a proposal and go then to take that proposal and see if we can find a publisher. And I told her, no, I don't want to do that. And I made an internal decision. I did not tell her. I said to myself, the only way I would ever write a book is if a publisher came to me and asked me. And of course, I thought I was safe, but that is exactly what happened 4 years later. So wow. You got to watch out for what you wish for sometimes. To briefly tell that story, Joe, I got a phone call one day. A guy named Richard was calling me up to find out about my Breath Alchemy technique. And he came to, we booked a session. And so he came for his session. And in his words, he brought his dark cloud with him. Along with that, more skepticism than I usually find by far in people who are interested in doing this work are usually showing some degree of enthusiasm. Yet he showed anything but. But it all turned around in that session when he had just a very powerful experience that really caused him to sit up and take notice. And for the first time, we were able to communicate. So he goes on to tell me that he owns a publishing company, and I'm just figuring, well, he's got the money to pay for his sessions. That's all it meant to me. But then when he came for 29 additional sessions on a weekly basis, we got a chance to get to know each other real well.
Yeah, I bet.
And I quickly found out, Joe, that his publishing company had published a book by Richard Hoagland's called The Monuments on Mars. And I don't know if you've heard of that book or not, but perhaps, the name Richard Hoagland has gotten out there a bit. Mm-hmm. And so that caused me to sit up and take notice, because this was now getting into the area of my greatest interest, not only Mars and UFOs and what's out there, but it just, the whole spiritual thing and the whole consciousness connection. And so I started asking him, pumping him for information. I was not auditioning to write a book. I just wanted to know what he knew about the monuments on Mars, because to me it was totally fascinating. And so then I willingly began to share with him what I was learning, not only about Mars, but all the other things that I was delving into. And one day I got a phone call, and it's a good thing I didn't take the call live when I got home from a hike, there was a message. It was from Richard, and he asked me if I would be willing to write a book on what he called the esoteric meaning of the monuments on Mars. And again, my first thought was, gulp, I'm not an author. But then I remembered.
Make you nervous quick, right? Yeah.
Oh, real quick, yeah. But I remembered my internal decision of 4 years earlier. And I realized that this is not a coincidence. There's something else going on here, what I would call higher forces at work, and I couldn't say no. So here I am. I'm writing a book. And I've got to tell you that it pressed every button I had and a bunch I didn't think or know that I had. But 15 months later, in spite of the fact that I didn't think that anybody would buy my book, I mean, who am I? Nobody's heard of me. Or that it would have, well, I just didn't think anybody would buy it. But I was completely wrong again. It came out in August of '94. And by Christmas, it was an overnight sensation. Wow. And I quickly found myself getting on a plane, going somewhere virtually every weekend, talking about nothing in this book is true. So the question you're asking, well, how did I come about that title? Well, truth is I didn't. Richard brought his daughter. She was 19 years old at the time. He brought her over for an afternoon to, she stayed for about a half an hour. And she just wanted to find out, I guess, on just how kooky I really am. And so I just told her. She asked me questions. I told her what I thought. And about a half an hour later, as they were on their way to the car, Richard later told me how their conversation went. Now, he said to her, well, Miranda, what did you think? And he says that she said. Now, I don't know if this is exact or not. He was probably campaigning to me to make this the title of the book, and I couldn't agree more. He was absolutely right. What he said was, well, everything he said, this is Miranda, she said, everything he said isn't true, but it is exactly how things are. And so Richard was saying, how about that for a title? And I said, well, hey, there we go.
That's
and so
interesting. Cool.
Yeah, nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. And just the title alone has sold probably tons of books. I've heard story after story of people picking the book up and off the shelf in the bookstore, and the title just grabbed them. Mm-hmm. And once they started thumbing through, they couldn't put it down. And so there we go.
Well, I bet, because we've brought this up on the show quite a bit, and here's why I know that we got you on here. For starters, if you look at this book on the website at bobfrissell.com, there's 3 bullet points here, right? And it says, this gives clear instructions on the Merkabah, or light body activation, and the companion unity breath, and it details our ancient past as seen through the eyes of the ascended masters, and provides exercise, tools, and techniques to clear the energies blocking your access to the higher self. Now, this mystery that has been surrounded around the Merkabah is something that we've discussed quite a bit on the show, and after hearing you talk about it, man, I've not heard anything like this. Do you want to start there with the Merkabah maybe, and just kind of explain what that is from your point of view to the rest of our audience?
First of all, I've got to say I'm really amazed to hear that you've heard of the Merkabah and you've talked about it on your show. And this is I don't know if it's the first time, but I'm really pleased to hear that. So let's go.
Yeah, well, it's just like the way I've seen it is through symbolism, because we've studied, ancient esoteric occult stuff, studied everything, and you see the holy hexagram, which is like a 2D linear symbol, but you also see the Merkabah line up in everything, like the tree of life, the flower of life. Like, it's that perfect geometrical thing that kind of lines up with your body. And I started thinking, now this was just in my head, I was like, well, what if and everybody that has these aha moments, I think, has had this happen, where they start thinking about perception, and they stretch out their arms and their legs, and then they think about the Vitruvian Man, and they're like, wait a minute, is this like some kind of vessel or energetic vessel or something? And then a lot of synchronicities happen in my studies that line up with that, but I can't quite put my finger on what this thing really is. And that's where you come in, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a vast topic, and to kind of get to the chase right here, then I think it might be a good idea to go and give it a little bit of context. But first of all, to try and directly answer just what the Merkabah is, my first response would be is, well, it's the universal pattern of creation. Let me just go back in time, kind of like way back, way
back in time, right?
Yeah, before time even existed, and I'm told that there was in fact a time before there was time, where there was only oneness. None of these multidimensional waveform universes existed. So all there was the one spirit, God, whatever you want to call him, her, all that is, in perfect awareness of him, herself, and all that is. And I suppose after a few eons, perhaps if God can possibly become bored, maybe she just decided to create a game and to create a bunch of an almost infinite number of dimensional universes. And what would be the reason for that? Well, the reason for it would be because there's virtually an infinite number of possibilities of experiences that you can have in each of the different dimensional levels. Then why not create it and give the eternal spirit an interesting game to play? Mm-hmm. And so what Spirit did, God, him, her, whatever you want to call it, was split himself into two. Part of him, her, stayed on the other side, on the formless side, and the other half of him, her, came into for the direct experience of witnessing and living all the different dimensional realities. And so the key here is the Merkabah, the also pronounced Merkabah. First of all, let me state that Merkabah or Merkabah is actually three words in one: Mer, Ka, and Ba. So Mer refers to fields of light, but not just any type of light. It's actually counter-rotating fields of light. Ka means spirit in just about all of the ancient languages, and Ba refers to body or reality. So the Merkabah, then, is a counter-rotating field of light that takes both spirit and body with it. So it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle of interdimensional travel. But that being said, there's really much more than that, because, in fact, it is the universal pattern of creation. And so you might say then that God, when she created all these multidimensional waveform universes, that she made certain that there was a way to get back through it all to source, and that's through the Merkabah. Now, the universal pattern of creation, then there's nothing it isn't. But included in what it is it's a vehicle of interdimensional travel. And so that image happens to be around our bodies in the form or the shape of what we call in sacred geometry a star tetrahedron, which is two perfectly interlocked tetrahedral shapes. And not that we're unique or anything, because that image is around everyone. Cats and dogs and birds and ETs and you name it. And everybody and everything has that image around them. So the interdimensional travel aspect of it is such that because everything is a function of consciousness, and it's just that, 13,000 years ago, we fell from relatively a high level of awareness down to, in many ways, the bottom of the barrel of self-aware consciousness, this third dark, dense dimensional reality, third dimensional. We forgot. We forgot virtually everything. And so we forgot about the counter-rotating fields. We forgot who we were. We became our mind. We became exactly who we are not, just living a total illusion. But that's one of the many infinite possibilities in waveform universe. But if you remember, and it really is, I think, more an act of remembering than learning it, because I think it is all contained within us, that we have the ability to change our conscious wavelength, and in combination with that, to rotate 90 degrees. And if we could remember that we know how to do that and actually did it, we would disappear from this reality. It would just be like a ball of light that just disappears, and we would reappear in whatever dimensional world that we had tuned to, bringing our bodies with us, and we would be just as real there as we are here.
Wow.
Yet our experience would be completely different. So that's just kind of like an eye-opener to the possibilities, and it's a pretty deep and pretty interesting rabbit hole. So
it's funny you talk about that rotating deal, because I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Monroe, but we talk about the out-of-body experience a lot here. Yeah. And there was a section in his book where he had learned how to, he learned how to get out of body, but then he learned that this rotating move that it was very hard for me to explain it, much as him in the book, that would cause him to live in another life, like he would be in another reality, just like you're saying. So that is pretty interesting that you say that. So this whole thing is kind of like, it's an illusion, but we're forced in the illusion, right? So how do we, can we learn to rotate 90 degrees? That would be cool.
I'm quite certain that at one point we did know how to do this, and we just had our memory erased when we fell 13,000 years ago, and literally we were starting from square one again. And so square one is, survival, learning how to build a fire and to hunt and to basically just survive. But to shed a bit more light, to unpack this Merkabah thing a little bit more, Joe, I mentioned the counter-rotating fields, and I talked about the star tetrahedral field that's around our body, but actually we have 3 of these fields. And in their dormant state, and in the state of our fallen state with regard to most humans, there's a few thousand people on the planet whose fields are activated, but for most of us, those fields are dormant. And so in the dormant state, they would be superimposed over each other, and if you could see them, it would look just like one. But there's actually 3. And so one is a physical body, one is the mental body, and one is the emotional body, and they all have these same star tetrahedral shapes. Now, the key to getting them in a counter-rotating manner is such that the physical body alone is not going to rotate. So it's locked. But the Merkabah itself, created by these counter-rotating fields of energy, is such that the mental field, which is electrical in nature and is male, rotates to the left. Then you've got the emotional field, which is female, and it's magnetic, which rotates to the right.
Okay.
So that, in combination with the linking together of the mind, the heart, and the physical body in very specific geometrical ratios and at very specific critical speeds, this is what produces the Merkabah, or the Merkabah. And it enables when you are ready. and you better be ready for this. When you are ready, it enables you to travel from one dimensional world to another. And this only sounds like a big deal to us because here again, we're deep in the darks of the 3rd dimension. But you don't have to go, into the higher overtones of the 4th dimension, and everybody knows what the Merkabah is. It's what UFOs are based upon. And counter-rotating technology, it's just the way to go. It's what life does. It's what life is. Like I say, it's the universal pattern of creation. And so, many of the UFOs coming in are the ones that are actually coming from other worlds, because plenty of them are coming from here too. But the ones that actually are coming from other worlds, many of them, if not most of them, are coming from higher dimensional levels. And they're just coming down to see what we're about and to see what's going on here and to watch the Great Awakening, because there's something pretty good that's going on here on planet Earth. At least there appears to be.
Okay, so we're locked in the human body, but we have these other bodies, like our emotional body, the mind body. See, I believe this. There's been so many masters that have talked about this in theosophy and all over the place, right? Dr. Stylianos of Tesla talks about an ethereal body. The Rosicrucians, they talk about a lunar and solar body. How many bodies do we actually have, though, in total?
Well, as far as I know, it's the 3, the physical, the mental, and the emotional.
Okay.
And there's geometry to everything. You briefly touched on sacred geometry. Well, I've actually got 2 chapters on sacred geometry in my book. The purpose of the sacred geometry is not to teach sacred geometry, but rather to show the doubting mind the unity of life. I'll just qualify that for a moment, if I may.
Sure.
As you know, we have the left brain and the right brain, the right side being the intuitive or the feminine side, the left side being the masculine or the logical side. And then we have the corpus callosum running down the middle, and its job is to pass information between the 2 sides, but it can't. It can't pass information because the 2 sides are in conflict. And in other words, the right brain, the intuitive, the feminine side, it doesn't care about logic. It just intuits its way. And intuitively, it knows there's only one spirit moving through all of life. It knows there's only one creation pattern. It knows that image is around our body. But you try and tell that to the left brain, to your mind, the left brain's going, I don't believe that. I don't believe in unity. I look out at the reality and I see division and separation everywhere. I look out and I see a world of which I'm not really a part of and don't really fit into. So don't talk to me about unity. So you got to show the mind, and there's only one way you can show it, and that's logically. And so sacred geometry is a really, really good tool for doing exactly that. Step by step, slide by slide, just showing the mind that there is only one creation pattern. There's only one spirit moving through all of life. And if you can show it logically, now it begins to believe it, because everything it does is based on logic. So you've got to approach it in that way. Now, when the left brain sees the unity, now the corpus callosum can begin to pass the messages between the 2 sides. The 2 sides can come into harmony, and now you've opened the doorway for the heart. And that is the doorway into higher consciousness. And so, yeah, I mean, we can go on and on with this stuff, but clearly there's more, so much more to us than appears to be. The physical body is just an illusion anyway. Really, what it is an illusory holographic projection of our consciousness. We're creating every bit of it from within ourselves. So we are so much more than we've considered ourselves to be, and that certainly includes the fact that we're much more than just a physical body, which is just illusory anyway. Don't forget the mental, the emotional, absolutely important. So.
Well, there you go. Look, we're going to take our break, but that's a heck of a start, right? So now when we come back with Bob, we're going to get into the context of this all, even the history, looking at the Merkabah, the light body, all of the different dimensions. I told y'all we were going to go deep. We'll be right back.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on The Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is V, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root in the show, and heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker. This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Have you suffered in silence or experienced stress from a paranormal experience? Even if it happened 20 years ago, when thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754 for a discreet consultation.
Come, walk through the mossy creek and up the hill. Never mind the flashing lights and otherworldly shadows. They stay hidden within the trees. Come, step up to the shack and begin your journey to the answers that you seek. This is Lady Anne, and you are listening to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Bob Frissell is our guest tonight, and we kicked off the show talking about his new book and the Merkabah, the light body. His new book, nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are, and discusses these things. Clear instructions on our light body, and Merkabah details about our ancient past as seen through the eyes of our ascended masters, and it's got tools, exercises in there as well. And Bob is with us tonight to discuss these things, and I guess what I want to do, since you've really kind of teased us with this whole thing, I mean, what you were talking about before the break, turning 90 degrees and being in another reality, and we just don't know how to do it yet. And the 3 different bodies that we possess that we've forgotten about is really just, man, this is some cool stuff. So this would indicate, right, that there are other dimensional realities all around us. And I guess I hear this a lot from other people, and I kind of want to know your opinion, that we're waking up. I mean, we even had Dr. Atwater on here who's saying, that the children that were born from 1982 and on, like there's this whole new awakening of people coming, because you hear them saying they're not from this planet, so to speak. But really, is there higher dimensional energy that's coming towards us? Like, are we actually waking up, like everybody's saying, like this new age that's coming?
Well, that's certainly an interesting question. And you could make a pretty good argument either way with that. You could say, on the one hand, the polarities seem wider than they ever have been. On the other hand, you could argue, as I do, for an enormous amount of higher dimensional energy, higher vibratory energy coming down from the higher worlds and impacting everybody on the planet and stirring things up. So by stirring things up, I mean that the darkness definitely is getting stirred up, and to me that explains the gap, the polarity being so wide at this point. Nothing happens by accident, and I think that everything is playing itself out exactly as it should. But I think, Joe, a really good idea would be to just get a little bit into this whole thing about different dimensional worlds, and just, what are they, and what do I mean when I talk about dimensions? You wanna go there with me?
Yeah, because it is kind of not confusing but perplexing, because I look at dimensions as not just geometrical things. My mind just, when you say other dimension, it gets real sci-fi like, and I see other planets and stuff. But what are we really talking about here? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it depends. If I were a mathematician, for example, I'd probably be telling you things like hyperspace and maybe 4D, 6D cubed, stuff like that. But I don't mean any of that. I'm not a mathematician. What I really mean is that every universe that has ever been created is right here, passing right through the very room in which you are sitting right now. And furthermore, they're all interlinked. And the only difference between one and the next one is wavelength. Okay. So wavelength, people in physics pretty much agree that everything is sine wave or wavelength, and that wavelength really is one of the keys. So with wavelength, you have a whole range of possibilities. You've got some that are unbelievably tiny. You got others that are so long they would just look almost like straight lines. And if you put them all together, you've got the electromagnetic spectrum. But if you take our reality, our universe, our dimensional reality, and if you look at the macrocosm, go well out past our solar system to include all the galaxies, to include the quasars, the black holes, and everything else that is out there, then you go to the microcosm, to the atomic and subatomic particles, and then to the world in which we live in. All of that is one universe, and it has a wavelength of 7.23 centimeters. So 7.23 centimeters, what is that and what does it mean? Well, if you look at quantum physics, every object can be looked upon either as particles, or it can be looked also as vibration, which is wavelength, vibrating energy. And every particle or every piece of matter has its own sine wave signature. So the thing just has, kind of like analogous to a handwriting signature, and it just keeps repeating itself. But if you were to take all of the objects in our universe, and if you were to average them out by wavelength, you would find it to be 7.23 centimeters long. But what about the dimensions themselves? Well, the dimensional worlds, they're all interlinked. They're all passing through the very room in which you and I are sitting. And again, the difference is wavelength. So they're separated from each other by wavelength in exactly the same way that notes are separated on a musical scale. So, if you take a piano keyboard and pick an octave from C to C, obviously there's 8 notes there, and each note sounds different because of its wavelength.
Right.
So, but if you take a look at that same octave, yeah, you've got the 8 white keys, but what about the 5 black keys? If you put those together, you've got the 13 notes of the chromatic scale. It's actually 12 because the 13th is the return, the first note on the next octave. And of course, just like on the piano keyboard, these octaves keep repeating themselves in both directions. The same is true for dimensional worlds. So it is vast. So the analogy of music, let me just go a bit further down that road.
Sure.
First thing I want to say is that music, just like the electromagnetic spectrum, in fact, just like everything else in our universe, is holographic. And what it means then is that in the musical scale, if you go in between any 2 notes, you've got a smaller version of the entire scale. And the same thing is true with dimensional worlds. So because dimensional worlds are separated by wavelength in exactly the same manner as the notes are on a musical scale, we can now use that model to look at the different dimensional realities. And so what you have then is you've got the 12 major dimensions, but the holographic nature of reality suggests that in between each dimension, you've got a smaller version of the whole thing, and they are called overtones. So you follow me so far? You've got the 12 major dimensions.
Okay, so in between each dimension, there's a smaller version of the whole set?
That's right. And so in between each major dimension are 12 dimensional worlds. They're called overtones. So even though it's kind of like a subset, a smaller version of the whole, these overtones are dimensional worlds just as vast as any of the others. And it gives you an idea of just how vast this thing is, because the 12 times 12 gives you 144 different dimensional worlds.
Wow.
But we're only looking at 1 octave. You know, you go
in
back
this
to the
reality,
keyboard,
right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, this reality, if we look at our reality, you know, all the way out to the most distant quasars, all the way into subatomic particles, and then certainly including the world in which we live, that's only 1 universe. That's only 1 dimension. What we call the 3rd dimension, with a wavelength of 7.23 centimeters. But it's only one of 144 dimensional worlds within our octave of existence. But just as on the piano, there's more than 1 octave, guess what? The dimensional octaves keep repeating themselves in both directions. And that means then that the 13th dimension just happens to be the 1st dimension in the next octave, of which there are 144 sum total different dimensional worlds. And it keeps going on and on and on, almost forever. Not perhaps quite, because I'm told it's not quite infinite, but I mean, what the heck? You probably have to live a few billion years in order to have enough time to count them all. It might as well be.
Does it make sense if I ask you, does it go on forever, finitely and infinitely, like small and big? Does it go on forever like that?
That's an amazing question, because if you look at logarithmic spirals, for example, they go in forever and they go out forever, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, where's the beginning? Where's the end?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right. So, you know, I just kind of implied a moment ago that there is an end to all of this, but I mean, who knows for sure? You know, I think that your argument might be a bit senior to mine, because here again, you just see it. All you got to do is look at any logarithmic spiral, and there it is. There's no beginning. There's no end. It goes in forever. It keeps going out forever. But to keep it simple and to try and keep it easy, that's kind of in a lot of ways like your TV set.
It gets perplexing after a while, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to simplify things a bit here. We'll talk about TV. So you turn on your TV set, and you turn it to a specific channel. Well, what you're doing is turning to a specific wavelength, and it's a specific wavelength transmission. Change the channel, you're tuning to a different wavelength, and a different image appears on your screen. And so it is with dimensional worlds. Okay.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I got you there.
Okay. So there's more. Are you ready for more?
I think so. I think I'm with you so far. I got you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Ready to go.
Yeah. All right. All right. Now, what about between dimensions? Well, between dimensions, there's a void. And just like there's a void between any two notes in the musical octave. But the voidness is just a total nothingness, or at least the void that we can relate to. Third dimensional void would be a total nothingness, not a single photon of light, no nothing, no up, no down, no directions, total sensory deprivation experience. And there's a void between each dimensional world. And so that's important. Then, separating the octaves, there's an even greater wall, an even thicker wall of voidness, which I'm quite certain was placed there intentionally, because we're not supposed to be able to know how to travel from one octave to the other until we're ready for it. I mean, just like, we don't know quantum physics when we're studying first grade Dick and Jane. We're not ready for it yet. But it doesn't mean we will never be ready for quantum physics and understanding it. It just means now is not the time. And so there are beings that are able to, they've been around the block a few times. There are beings, very high levels of consciousness, that have mastered the ability to go into any of the 144 different dimensional worlds. Here again, by changing their conscious wavelength, making the 90-degree turn, disappearing from whatever reality they were in, reappearing in the new world, and to be able to stay there. So you might think that, well, goodness sakes, that's really advanced stuff. But yet, to someone coming down here from the Pleiades or from Sirius or, one of the higher dimensional worlds, it's no big deal at all. But the ability to remain conscious and stable in all 144 different dimensional worlds, that is a big deal. Because, you see, these worlds are all completely different. And if you're not ready for one of them, you could step into it and 10 seconds later, you're freaked out and you can't stay there. So to be able to remain conscious and stable, that's the key. That's the trick right there. And when you've learned that, now you're able to, if you wish, make the journey through the great wall of voidness and into the next octave of existence. And if there was any doubt, this travel into the next octave will certainly dispel the idea of whether or not there's one spirit or more moving through all of life. There is no doubt when you've gotten to this level, and that all of reality keeps repeating itself over and over and over. So, we've heard the phrase "as above, so below." Mm-hmm. It's literally true, by the way. And
it's all fractaled inside of itself, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the same universal laws, the same universal stuff fractaled inside of itself, but these laws carry within these smaller realities or bigger realities, however you want to look at it fundamentally. It's kind of like the Fibonacci sequence. We see that in everything, right? If we pay attention.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned the Fibonacci sequence. I just threw out the idea of the logarithmic spiral a few moments ago, but in mentioning that, of course, it has no beginning and it has no end. But the thing is, on this third dimensional level, at least, we don't know how to play that game. I mean, how do you deal with something that doesn't have a beginning? You can kind of deal with something that has no end, but if there's no beginning, where do you start? And so what we have done, at least on the third dimensional level, is we've figured out a pretty elaborate way of cheating. And it's called the Fibonacci sequence, which does have a beginning. And so with the Fibonacci sequence, which is what life does, it's repeated all throughout life, in sunflower seeds, in all throughout organic life, all over the place. You're going to find the Fibonacci sequence. because it does have a definite beginning. But very quickly, it approximates the logarithmic spiral so quickly that you can't tell the difference. But there is that fundamental difference. So just, you know, just...
Well, let me ask you this question real quick before we move on from here. So if there are things out there that can travel to these dimensions and stuff, and we'll go there too shortly, we can't take, according to what you're saying, is we can't take our physical bodies, like this physical body I have with me now, I can't take it into a different reality as I move, not as if I can move around in this one. Do I have to learn how to get into my other bodies, or? Oh,
you do bring your physical body with you.
Really?
Yeah. That's what the Merkabah is all about. See, there's really two ways of creating the Merkabah. One is the internal Merkabah, which is a living energy field around our bodies, which we all have. And the key to developing and manifesting your internal Merkabah is you need to be connected to all source, to all of spirit. You need to be connected to the oneness. You need to be heart-based rather than mind-based. The difference being that unity base is coming from the heart, and polarity, seeing separation and division everywhere, is coming from mind-based consciousness, which is what we've fallen into in this third dimensional reality. But when you are unity-based, and you've progressed far enough, then you develop the ability to not only turn the Merkabah on, but to use it as an interdimensional vehicle of travel, bringing your body with you. And if you were to take this third dimensional body and to take it into one of the higher fourth dimensional worlds, and if you were decided to stay there, you could come back. But if you decided to stay there, you would very quickly begin to go through metamorphosis. And in the period of 2 years, your body would change dramatically. It would move from a third dimensional body into a fourth dimensional body. Vast differences, which we can get into if you want to. But for one thing, the height range on that level is between 10 to 16 feet. And so we were talking about the Bible a little bit during the break and mentioning that neither of us is a student of the Bible, but I'm student enough to know that the Bible refers to the fact that there were giants on the earth way back in the day. And so what it's referring to is the different levels of consciousness, beings from the higher dimensional worlds, fourth dimension, who have a height range of 10 to 16 feet. And
I did bring up the Bible. You want to hear something weird, and maybe just think about this too. In Revelations, he talks about the kingdom of heaven, and he says the length is the width as the height of it. It's the same. It's the of a man that's that of an angel, right? So if you look at that, it's like the Vitruvian Man. That's what I look at. And when you trace that out, that's a pentagon. And then he talks about there's 12 walls in the kingdom of heaven, and 144,000 are supposed to only be in the kingdom of heaven. It's a puzzle, all right? And when you put this thing together, I've talked to Dr. Richard Allen Miller about this, it's a dodecahedron, a 12-sided dodecahedron, which the Merkabah fits in perfectly, doesn't it? Or does it not?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. The star tetrahedral field is not the only geometrical field around our bodies. They're all nested over each other in the shape of the 5 platonic solids. And so one contains them all. And the dodecahedron contains them all. And all of them came from an image known as Metatron's cube. And so this is vast stuff. Fascinating stuff, too.
So, you know how you said earlier, this goes back way, 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 way back. And even Manly P. Hall said it's truly remarkable how the mysteries have lasted through the times, religions, or whatever. Something has been putting some of these truths in our scriptures, in our religions, or in our myths, and our mythologies, and kept it there for us to find, almost as if it's waiting for us to wake up and see it. Or when the time is right, they'll know it's there. Something. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. So what is the first thing that we need to do real quick, and then we can take a break? How do we tap into this first and foremost? What is it that we need to do to start learning how to realize these realities and travel them ourselves, what's the first thing that we got to do, you think?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, the first thing we need to realize, Joe, is that everything is a function of consciousness. Einstein understood it when he said that you cannot solve your problems with the same level of awareness that created them. And I just love that. It's so true. We need to realize that 13,000 years ago, we fell and we became our mind. We used to be in unity. We used to be heart-based. And when you're seeing unity, when you are heart-based, you're seeing that what appears in polarity consciousness to be, opposite enemies, good versus evil, are actually two different aspects of the same thing. And they're actually working together, serving as timing agents. Timing is the key to everything. And so we need to start to learn to listen from our heart. And when we do, we can begin to see that there's something much more than I'm right and you're wrong and good and evil consciousness and all the rest of that. We can begin to see that everything is interlinked and everything is interconnected. And really, that's what a great deal of what I talk about in my books are all about, because, I'm just throwing this dimensional stuff and the Earth history and whatever out because it's fascinating, and also just to give some context to what I really want to talk about, and that's just the whole game of consciousness and how we can raise our vibratory rate to get to the point where we can catch the ride into this higher consciousness and do so in a way that's enabling Mother Earth to become lit from within, so that we, along with the entire planet, can literally ascend into the higher worlds. Where
that would be cool. Because this place is starting to get boring,
where the veils will be lifted.
Right. Yeah, this place, we'll talk about that some more too, because I know that you guys got some questions. Look, if you can call in at 1-800-588-0335 if you want to. You can also text in or drop your question in the Fringe FM chat. Already see a couple of them there. We'll be back with Bob Frissell.
This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
This is Reverend John M. Polk. Please visit me at johnpolkmedia.com and visit my show, Quantum Hologram Matrix, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday on thefringe.fm.
Stress is at an all-time high, and all of us could use a little bit of stress relief. That's why I want to talk to you about Soothe. Now, this is an app you can download on your phone. They have a massage therapist that arrives with a massage table, sheets, lotion, oils, and music, and you're in charge. You can book in seconds and schedule at 8 a.m. to midnight. Massage 7 days a week, anytime it's available. There's a 60-minute arrival period. A vetted background-checked massage therapist will come to you in as little as an hour. All of the therapists are vetted by industry veterans that ensure a compassionate, healing touch. So maybe you're a little stressed and you need to feel spoiled. Well, there's no better way to do that than relax at your own home and not have to deal with the outside world with Soothe. Right now, you can get $10 off your first massage by putting in the code word FRINGE10 at checkout. That's www.soothe.com, or download the Soothe app and put in the code word FRINGE10.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
Is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Bob Frissell is our guest tonight, and we are talking about his book. The website is bobfrissell.com. We're talking about his new book. Nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. And actually, before the cool thing is about this book, too, is before the show, I said, hey, Bob, is there anything that we really want to talk about tonight? Because you talk about so many things. And he said, well, in this new book, you cover everything, right? So this book pretty much has all of it, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Good.
It does cover a few bases.
Yeah, because, come on, I just want to bring this up real quick. If this is true, and it definitely feels true for all of us that have studied consciousness and consciousness exploration, this definitely could explain a lot of the UFO phenomena that we see that happens, where you take guys like Elon Musk who's been launching rockets left and right, and he said, look, I don't see any aliens or ships or anything out here. And yet we've had so many experiences where things seem to just come in, right? Fade in. I've seen these videos. They look like orbs or certain things that fade in and fade out. So if what you're saying is true, then there has to be beings that are already above us in consciousness that are using their Merkabahs or light bodies to move in and out of this place and anywhere else, right?
Absolutely. And either using their light bodies or UFOs. And UFO technology is based upon the counter-rotating fields. And so the whole thing, as you point out, of just, appearing and disappearing, that's the way they do it. if you're riding on a UFO, it's just a little bit different than hopping on an airliner and going from New York to San Francisco. Just a little bit different, because when it's time to shift dimensions, the beings just all merge together. They come into unity, they link together, and they are in combination as, just one mind, one spirit, changing their conscious wavelength, making the 90-degree turn, and enabling them to enter into our dimensional world or to leave it. And so in a flash, they're either here or they're gone.
Well, okay, I got to ask this, Bob. Did you have an experience with this yourself? Is this why you came across this knowledge, or is this something had to have happened that I'm missing here?
I came across this. I have long since had a burning desire to, if there's something I really want to know about, or if there's something I really want to do, I will stay with it, and I will not be stopped, and I will stay with it until I uncover what it is that I'm looking for. It began very innocently enough when my great goal in life was to be the very best bowler that I could be. So I wanted to be a touring professional, and I got started in that area. And after a few tournaments, after a few national tournaments, I began to realize that if I wanted to be able to compete with these guys who are pretty good, they're just the best there is. If I wanted to be able to compete with them on a consistent basis, I had to find a way to stay calm and centered at the time when you most need it, and that's in pressure situations. And so what that led to, much to my surprise, was, in fact, it was the door opener. It just opened the door, it began to open the door for everything. I had a friend at the time who said, well, there's a certain book that you need to read. And it was authored by a man by the name of Alan Watts, and it was called The Book, the subtitle being On the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are. And so that was my introduction to everything. And I'm still not sure why he said you need to read this book, but he did. I was just wanting to be a better bowler, right? And but I think he saw it a little bit deeper than I did. And when I got this book, I couldn't put it down. It became my constant companion. So that was the door opener. And that was what I mean by the door opener. It just led me to the realization eventually that everything is a function of consciousness. And that, in combination with wanting to lift the veil, because I was so tired of all the lies that we have been told, that I just, I didn't know what the truth was, but I knew that the lies were not the truth. And so here again, I had that burning desire. That's what got me going in my bowling game, and that's what I've had with me. It's just been my constant companion throughout all of these endeavors. And so it's just the idea of wanting to lift the veils, to get to the truth, to get through the lies, to get through the deception, and to come to the realization that really nothing is as it appears to be. And then that in combination with just waking up to the fact that everything is a function of consciousness. Well, I mean, the journey is never ending. And so because I had that burning desire, my life just began to take on magical qualities. It's kind of like, because I was totally on purpose, I had this total burning desire, people just began literally crawling out of the woodwork. Some of them were only there for 5 minutes, and they came up to me and they said, here, this is what you need. And then they would crawl back into the woodwork, and I would never see them again. Others became great friends, and others became great teachers. And so when you start putting it all together, it's just morphed into what, and the one thing I'll say, Joe, is that the more you know you don't know. So
that's right.
I'm still just a baby in all of this stuff.
That's right. But I can totally relate to what you're saying with the burning desire thing, because when I set my mind to something too, I want to learn everything about it. The problem with that is, in my field, I've found that everybody just wants you to show them how, right? And you're like, man, it took me forever to learn all this stuff. You gotta start at the beginning. And And that's kind of where, with your stuff, we're starting to talk about how this has been around forever. And I asked you earlier, what can we do, right? What can we do to be a part of this so we can learn how to do these things? And you're just simply stating that it's all about understanding unity consciousness, right? Letting go of the separation factor.
Everything is a function of consciousness. It's just like Einstein said, you cannot solve your problems with the same level of awareness that created them. And so what he's clearly saying is exactly that. Everything is consciousness. And so, yeah. And it, I mean, it's just, to me, it's the most fascinating journey there is.
Me
There's
too.
nothing that begins, turn on the TV, watch a football game. Well, yeah, okay. But come on.
Yeah.
Relative to this.
Yeah. Right. Consciousness exploration is everything to me too. And it's not just, some people think when I say that, they're like, what do you mean, meditating and doing mantras and hoping and you relax? No. This is, I mean, if you're into sci-fi and exploring what reality is and watch the Twilight Zone growing up, and that's what I'm talking about, trying to figure out what this is all about. And the thing about it is what gets me is why now, right? I mean, everybody talks about this, and even you said, we're going through some changes and stuff. We're learning, things are being shaken up. People can look at it that way, and I definitely see your point there. But why is it happening now? Out of all the years?
Why not 10,000 years from now?
Or before, during the Egyptian era or the caveman era? Why now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, in order to answer that, we need to, the way I talk about it in my book is that I point to a couple of the motions that the Earth makes and suggest very strongly that they are linked to the looking at the question of why now. In fact, that's the title of the chapter, Why Now? and so one of them is that this has been, fairly recently discovered that we are meaning our, not only Earth, but our solar system. We're moving through space in a manner that indicates very clearly that we're connected to some other body out there because of just the way that we're moving. It just can't be any other way is what, those supposedly who have studied this have come to the conclusion of. And so looking around and doing the research and whatever, they finally narrowed it down to Sirius, the Sirian star system. And so we're moving through space in a manner that clearly indicates, according to them, that we are connected to Sirius, indicating that we have a destiny with Sirius. And in the book, I just go into all the detail of how, in fact, we are so connected to the Sirians and how they've played and continue to play such a critical role in our evolutionary development. So there's one thing right there. But there is another that in many ways is perhaps even more significant. And that is a slow 26,000 year cycle that's known as the precession of the equinoxes. And so what this one is that, certainly we know that the Earth rotates on its axis, gives us our night and day, and that it's tilted 23.5 degrees, which gives us our 4 seasons. But what is not so well known, or perhaps as well known, is the fact that the axis itself is in a wobble, a really tiny wobble, because over the course of, say, 72 years, it only changes 1 degree. Over the course of 2,160 years, it changes the viewpoint of 1 constellation, and over the course of 25,920 years, it makes 1 complete cycle, and this slightly less than 26,000 year cycle is what we know as the precession of the equinoxes. And so as we move along this cycle in a counterclockwise manner, it is tied to great changes of consciousness and also physical changes on the planet itself. And it's divided into 2 equal segments of each of 13,000 years. Now, at one point, we're furthest away from the center of the galaxy. And of course, at the other point, we are closest to the center of the galaxy. So when we go out on the far point and start turning the corner and start moving back against towards the center of the galaxy, we're heading into a cycle that history has shown us that it just puts us to sleep. It's like for 13,000 years, we start to go asleep and we don't begin to wake up until we start turning the corner again and heading back into the light. Well, in all of this talk about 2012, just a few years ago, and in the Mayan calendar, it's the end of the Mayan calendar. And what does it mean? Is it the end of time? Is it the end of the world as we know it? What does it all mean? Well, it didn't really mean any of that. What it meant was that on December 21st, 2012, that was the last day in the old cycle, the last day in the 13,000-year asleep cycle. December 22nd of 2012 was the very first day in the 13,000-year cycle of awakening. And so we are turning the corner and we are beginning to wake up. And what it means is that there is higher vibratory energies coming down from the higher worlds that's impacting the Earth. There's really a whole lot of it coming down, and it's impacting and affecting every single person on the planet. If you and I would have tried to talk about this stuff, and believe me, I did, 25 years ago, or before my book came out. My book gave me some credibility. To others, it just totally convinced them that this guy is a kook. So take your pick. But it did give some credibility to, and it helped open many eyes as to just exactly what I mean when we begin to unpack all of this. We're waking up. And I don't think you'd have to go much further than maybe 30, 40, 50 years. You know, I think if you could pick a turning point, it would have been the 1960s. Basically, when in a number of ways, all hell began to break loose, if you were there and did that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's the, make love, not war, the psychedelic era, this whole thing where nowadays people, it was all about unity then, right? And understanding that. And, I do want to bring that up for two reasons. You hear a lot of people talk about the DMT experience and the ayahuasca experience and the kinds of stuff they see. Last night we were talking about Alex Gray's paintings of other dimensions in his artwork. But I've seen people actually break down because, like you were mentioning earlier, they can't handle the other realities. Like, it's just too much. And I think that sometimes these substances open those doorways when we're not ready for them. I wonder what your thoughts are on that before I move to the next point about the 60s.
Well, that's exactly what they are. Psychedelics are a door opener. They take you up. They take you into the higher centers. It's quite different from, say, cocaine or alcohol or heroin, I suppose, that take you into the lower centers, and they tend to trap you there. So the psychedelics take you into the higher centers, and they are a door opener. But as you correctly point out, not everybody is able to handle it. See, psychedelics, as you look into it, they have been used throughout the ages in the mystery schools for the exact same reason. They're a door opener. They've been used in the indigenous tribes, and again for the exact same reason, but they've been used quite differently in ceremony and sacrimony and stuff like that, as opposed to the hippie movement back in the 60s when it was a, hey man, bon voyage, have a great trip. Well, not everybody did have a great trip because not everybody was prepared for it. But if you could handle it, you would get a glimpse. You could get a very clear glimpse and come away with the clear understanding that there is more going on than just 5 sense reality. There's a whole lot more going on. And once you start to open that door, your life ain't never, ever going to be the same again. And so the 60s was a time of tremendous change. And, it took 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years in order for the changes to begin to really sink in a bit, enough so that what you have now is you've got people all over the place who are waking up and beginning to realize exactly what we're talking about. There's much more to this reality than what I see on TV. There's nothing but lies there. There's much more to this reality than 5 cents reality. There's much more to this reality than anything that we've been told in school or anywhere else. And man, it's amazing. It's fascinating. And so once you start waking up, there is no going back. And so it's happening. It's happening to many, many people, thousands, millions of people. Who knows what the exact number is, but it's growing all the time.
So you said earlier that things are being shaken up and everything is timing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's what bothers me about that. I think we were on the precipice, like we were about to really do something in the 60s. And then that shot rang out that killed JFK. And
Yes.
I feel like that was the dark forces saying, you guys are moving too quick. Watch this. Let's instill a whole bunch of fear into them and control right now. You know, that's how it feels on a soul level to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I'm right about that. It just feels that way to my soul. And I think ever since then, we've been trying to find our way back, so to speak, you know?
Well, that's the whole eternal light versus dark battle that what Kennedy was doing. And the reason he was assassinated is because, and this is not, not many people really have looked into this. But here again, as I suggested earlier, I was totally committed to lifting the veil. I was just so sick and tired of all the lies that we had been told, and that in combination with really a fan of Kennedy. I felt it was kind of like the only real president we've ever had, and yet here he was gunned down in broad daylight. What was behind that? So I researched the Kennedy assassination ad nauseum, and what I came up with is that this is when I was first introduced to what is commonly now called the deep state. We called it the secret government back then. Some people called it the Illuminati. Some people called it the cabal. But it's the hidden hand behind the scene, that behind the scenes, these faceless, nameless people are controlling everything. They control who gets elected, when, where, and how. They control whether they control the money supply. That's what the world central banking system is all about, as perfectly stated back in the 19th century by Baron M.A. Rothschild, who said, "Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws." Kennedy was beginning to bypass the Federal Reserve by printing United States notes. Federal Reserve notes is a debt-based system where you go into debt, you have to borrow the money, and what it does is it creates a multi-trillion-dollar deficit, as we all know that we have right now, endless inflation, and it's a means of control. And so ever since 1913, when the Federal Reserve came in, we've been in jail, and we don't even know it. Kennedy understood that, and so he began bypassing the Federal Reserve. That alone was enough to get him killed. But you add to that the combination that he was resisting fighting the Vietnam War, a war we were supposed to fight, because all wars are banking wars. They are big ticket items. People become fabulously wealthy through it. Who cares if thousands, if not millions of people get killed or have their lives ruined or any of the rest of that? These people are heartless. They don't care about those things. Those are, as I research it, the two main reasons, and there's more, but those were the two main things why Kennedy was assassinated. Then his brother had to go 5 years later, because had he become the president, and he would have continued the journey. So they had to get rid of him too, along with Martin Luther King. And those were three serious blows. I mean, holy cow, the Kennedys were revered and loved like no other president. And what it did to the nation, it was just, it's like Brooklyn losing the Dodgers. I don't know if they've ever recovered.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Let's see. Here we go. Here's a good question from the Night Stalker. If you've had to be in the centered and tuned with the heart and stuff to do this, does this mean that we aren't encountering negative entities? Are all the UFOs from higher dimensions? I don't really get that question, Night Stalker, but if you have to be in tune with your heart, I see what he's saying. If you have to be in tune with your heart to be able to experience this, does that mean that what we encounter isn't negative entities at all? They're all just, loving beings or whatever.
It's all a function of consciousness. No, they're not all just loving beings. There are light forces, there are dark forces. But again, it's not what it appears to be. It only appears to us to be a certain way because of the unwitting lens through which we're looking at the reality called good and evil consciousness. Viewed from a higher level, viewed from unity consciousness, you're going to see the same thing, but you're going to see it playing out entirely differently. You're going to see these two opposing forces, the darkness doing everything it can to keep us stuck, to keep us under their control, basically, the forces of light doing everything they can to get us to move into the light as quickly as possible. What we're going to see from unity consciousness is that they're just two differing aspects of the same thing. There's only one spirit, and they're actually working together. They're actually serving as timing agents. And I devote many, many chapters in my book to showing just exactly how you and I, what we can do to catch that ride, to begin the process of moving out of polarity and into unity, so we can see and live wholeness again, so we can see and live from that higher heart-based perspective and begin to bring that sort of, if you will, higher vibratory rate down to everyone here on the planet Earth, to assist the planet in its awakening, which is exactly what's happening. We're in process of creating a critical mass. So,
really?
Yeah, we are.
Well, I can definitely tell it by the polarities of things now too, and I get what you're saying. Look, I can't believe we're already halfway through the show. I want to talk a little bit more about how we get to this point and get to more of your questions. We're with Bob Frissell. You can stay with us after these short messages. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void live on the Fringe FM. Be right back.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast. Need another late night fix? You can tune in every weeknight to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, the Fringe FM.
Para-Abnormal News. I'm Brad Bernards. NASA's Parker Solar Probe may be the closest ever flyby of the Sun in August 2018, collecting massive amounts of data using cutting-edge scientific instruments from a distance of 15 million miles. 4 new papers published in the journal Nature Wednesday reveal new findings that could rewrite the way we understand the way stars are born, evolve, and die. They could also help us find new ways to protect astronauts from harsh space weather during long-distance trips through the solar system.
At Earth, it appears that the magnetic field lines flow evenly out from the Sun, but Parker saw them behave in a surprising way. The magnetic field lines flip in a whip-like motion, turning 180 degrees around in a matter of seconds.
The cause of these switchbacks is still a mystery to scientists, but they could eventually allow us to understand how energy flows away from the Sun and throughout the solar system. The probe will be attempting to get even closer to the Sun during an encounter on January 29th, 2020. A rocket carrying the investigation of Cusp Irregularities 5 was launched from Norway at 2:43 a.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday, November 26th. The rocket carried the payload to 157 miles altitude. Preliminary data shows the mission did not perform as planned and is under review.
Solar energetic particles are high-energy particles that can endanger both astronauts and satellites in space. The solar wind is the continuous outflow of particles and magnetic field from the Sun.
Thanks to our planet's magnetic field, it's mostly deflected away, but head far enough north and you'll find the exception. Most of the Earth is shielded from the solar wind, said Mark Condi, space scientist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. But right now, near the poles, our magnetic field becomes a funnel where the solar wind can get all the way down to the atmosphere. These funnels, known as the polar cusps, can cause some trouble. The influx of solar wind disturbs the atmosphere, disrupting satellites and radio and GPS signals. Beginning November 25th, 3 new NASA-supported missions are launching into the northern polar cusp, aiming to improve the technology affected by it. Read more about tonight's news at parabnormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Alex. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Bob Frissell, our guest tonight here on the program. Next week we will be back for another round of shows, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight, right here on the Fringe FM. Tonight we're talking about Bob and his new book. We're also been discussing many things when it comes to reality, consciousness, the Merkabah, different dimensions, and we even talked about JFK. So that's how you know you're into a real subject, when you can take it anywhere and bring it right back to where you began. You're getting somewhere close to the truth. At least that's what I think anyways. And when I look at this, though, Bob, I wonder, have we ever gotten close? Like, have we ever gotten close to being able to do this as a society? Because you hear about, I don't know, like Atlantis, right? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we ever, as a society, ever got close to being able to do this, to be able to move higher, like ascend and come together? Did we ever get close ever in our history on this planet, you think?
Yeah, certain aspects of it, certain aspects of us did exactly that. And so to talk about Atlantis, well, obviously we're looking into Earth history, which is just a fascinating topic. And one of my favorites, I devoted an entire chapter to it. And really so much of the book is based upon that chapter on Earth history. But, you know, to talk about Atlantis, we need to talk about our history. And as humans, we need to know our history, because we need to understand, you know, how did we get into our present predicament? If we don't know our past, how the heck are we going to know how to get out of it? And we're told that, you know, everything began in 3800 BC in Sumer. and that there was nothing before that except hairy barbarians. So we must be the greatest thing that ever lived on this planet. Well, in fact, there have been civilizations so far ahead of us that we can't even imagine. And, for people who are Star Trek fans, they've come out with a couple of episodes that pretty well illustrate that. I think very well illustrate that. When I mentioned that, I'm immediately reminded of one in the original series. It's called Errand of Mercy, one of my favorites, where war was being declared, goodness sakes, between the Klingons and the Federation. And so, Kirk and Spot thought that they'd better go to this planet called Organia, and their job was to beam down and to warn the inhabitants about just all the awful Klingons, and they were going to come and take over their planet and control them and turn them into slaves. But the thing is that the Organians just didn't seem to much care. And no matter what Kirk and Spock tried to say, the Organians were saying, well, there's no problem. Nothing's going to happen to us. And towards the end of the episode, we begin to understand exactly what they mean. The Organians, as it turned out, were beings of pure light, beings of pure energy. And they demonstrated this by disappearing into a ball of light. And in so doing, they demonstrated not only who they were, but you talk about war, both sides were instantly incapacitated, and that was that. So to me, that just perfectly illustrates the fact that there have been beings here that are so far beyond us that we can't even imagine. We've got civilizations dating back as much as 500 million years. So my conclusion on all of this is that this planet is a starseed. And what I mean by that is that you've got life forms that have come from all over. They've combined with other life forms that have come from who knows where, generated new life forms, and then they've left. And that's in fact how we were created. And I go into the details on that in the book.
Well, I talked to David Griffin, who's the head of one of the largest Rosicrucian orders here in the United States, and I asked him about alchemy. And I know you talk about breath alchemy, but this kind of goes in hand, I think. And I wonder what your comments are on this. He said, look, true alchemy is learning to develop your energetic body. And I said, in a consciousness way. He said, well, yes, but he said, I mean in a physical way. And yes, it's consciousness. And he also said to me that you need to learn how to give more energy. And he kind of explained it a little bit more. And then he said, the end goal is to be able to travel through starlight and be no longer stuck on physical planes where we can travel through the stars the way we want to. And that's where he left it. What are your thoughts on alchemy as a whole, like the whole subject of it?
Well, sure. Alchemy is about transmutation. And so alchemy is we've heard of it. It's taking, base metal, mercury, lead, and turning it into gold. And so that's transmutation. When I talk about breath alchemy, what I'm talking about is on an energetic basis, learning how to transmute energy that you were quite certain was not in any way contributing to your well-being. In fact, it was quite the opposite, very detrimental energy, very harmful energy, very bad stuff, and learning how to transmute that energy so it becomes totally obvious that it is contributing to your sense of well-being. And so my sense of alchemy is that on the highest level, what it's really about is the understanding of how we go through transformation, literally how we go through the transmutation or the transformation or the translation of moving from one-dimensional world into another world. And I think there's a common denominator there with what your other guest was talking about.
Right.
And yeah. So here again, everything's a function of consciousness. There's just no two ways about that.
Well, I say that because you brought up Sirius earlier, and planets, you're calling them star seeds. And I think we have this idea because we're humans that we're only meant to live on planets or physical planets like this that are really dense. But I mean, there could be all kinds of beings out there that we don't understand. And if they are indeed light beings, then maybe there are all kinds of beings that actually live on the stars, or maybe the stars are just portals. I mean, I don't know.
Living literally in the stars, in the suns. And in fact, you mentioned Sirius. Well, that's how you get, you want to take the journey from Sirius to our system. Well, if you're on Sirius, one of the planets in the Sirian system, what you do is you travel right through Sirius, and Sirius is a binary system, Sirius A, the large one that we do see. You go right through the sun. 90 seconds later, because of the interconnection of the two systems, you're in our system, and here you are. And so...
now, did you say 90 seconds is real math there? Like
90 seconds, that's what I'm told.
Wow. That would be amazing, right? So why did we do... Okay, well, here's my question then. If we fall from this state of higher consciousness and we became separate, and we need to learn how to become a union, we need to learn how to come back together, so to speak, or become whole again. Why did we fall to begin with? Why would we want to?
Well, it's not something we necessarily wanted to do. And that would be a very, very detailed answer. And if I were to really go into the details on it, it would easily take up the remaining time we have.
Okay.
And probably a few hours more. But if I can try and cut to the quick on that a little bit, you mentioned Atlantis and what was going on there. Well, in order to understand what was going on in Atlantis, we need to predate Atlantis and go back to Lemuria, which is the continent, the series of, basically an island continent in the Pacific. And the remnants of it left are the Hawaiian Islands, dating and jotting down to Easter Island. But all the rest of it now is at the bottom of the ocean. But there was a time when Lemuria was alive and well in a very thriving continent. And at that time, unlike our left brain culture of today, we were totally right brain, feminine based, intuitive, and very much in tune with the idea of unity, of one spirit moving throughout all of life. And there was a couple way back in the day by the name of Ai and Taiye. And in the course of having a baby, not in the conventional way, but through what I suppose we would refer to as interdimensional mating, and don't ask me, I can't explain it. They were able to create immortality, not only within themselves, but also the baby. So the three of them became immortal. And I don't know how long it took them to figure that out, but after a few hundred or 1,000 years, when they didn't die, maybe they finally began to realize, hey, I guess we are immortal. And so at some point, they decided to open a mystery school, the first mystery school in our evolutionary pattern dating way back, and it was called the Naacal Mystery School, NAACAL. It existed for the purpose of teaching immortality to whomever and whoever was ready and whoever was willing and whoever wanted to learn. And so in the course of about 1,000 years, they graduated about 1,000 people. It actually would have been more like 999, because here again, the mother, the father, and the child all became immortal. They became known as the Naacals. They also became known as the Ascended Masters, the first group or the first wave of Ascended Masters. And things were really going well in Lemuria. But there was something else going on, and that is that Lemuria was slowly sinking, probably from day one. And about 1,000 years into the Naacal Mystery School, it finally did sink. But because the Lemurians were very intuitive, very much in tune with unity, I suppose it was, just a little inconvenient, But, there were no casualties, or very few, because they all knew what was happening and they were all properly prepared. And so the Lemurians, they migrated to the west coast of the Americas, from Lake Titicaca in the south to Mount Shasta in the north. But the Nacals, the 1,000 or so ascended masters that are also known as the Nacals, they went somewhere else. Because at the time that Lemuria sank, there was another continent that rose in the Atlantic that we know as Atlantis. And so they went to a particular island just to the north of the main continent of Atlantis, and they gave it a name. They called it Undal, and they began to do something very unusual. Without going into the specifics, and the time frame being in at least 1,000 years, so they were in no great hurry, but basically over the course of a long period of time, what they were doing was recreating the human brain. And then one particular act kind of like breathed life into the brain. And so you might say the brain of Atlantis at a certain point became alive, and at that point it projected onto the main continent the 10 points, the 10 vortexes of the Tree of Life, one of the basic images in sacred geometry. And so what you had on the main continent of Atlantis was 10 very powerfully whirling vortexes of energy that were clearly summoning the Lemurians to Atlantis. And because the Lemurians were very intuitive, they didn't know why. They didn't need to know why. They didn't ask why. They just knew that they had to migrate. And so they started coming into Atlantis, and they started filling in these centers. And it just goes on from there. There's much more to this story because this is where 2 ET races were initially introduced into our evolutionary pattern and began to have, well, a great deal to say about who we were to become, and how we were evolving. I hope I'm not jumping too much over this place, but are you sort of following me so far?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I'll fill in. I'll just unpack this thing about the ET races just a little bit more. I don't know why, but evidently the evolutionary pattern of the Lemurians, or maybe it was the Nacals, I don't know. But the Nacals at the time were they had traveled as high as the 6th dimension, way beyond where the average Lemurian was, even though the average Lemurian was probably 4th dimensional. But somebody only knew the pattern of 8 of these 10 vortexes. And so what it meant then is that the Lemurians came in from the west coast of the Americas. They filled in 8 of the 10 vortexes. They became major cities or major centers, but 2 of them were left vacant. But they weren't left vacant for long. This is where the 2 ET races came in and quickly filled them up. The first race, unlike the second race, came in with permission. But it's the second race that did not seek permission. This is a race of beings from Mars, our neighbor. Not the Mars that you see out there today, which is basically a dead planet. Not the Mars of 65,000 years ago when this was all going on, but the Mars of about 1 million years ago. And about 1 million years ago, Mars was a dying planet for the simple reason that it was a total left brain culture. And because if you are a total left brain culture, you ultimately get to a point where you've got no emotional body. And if you sever your emotional body, you've got no idea what unity is. You have no reason to care. You have no reason what love and respect is. All there is control and domination. And so they were constantly at war. And just before they blew their atmosphere completely away, a small group of them went to the area that we know as Cydonia. And for those of you who are familiar with Richard Hoagland's work, The Monuments on Mars, which is what got me started in all this stuff in the first place, got me writing this book, Hoagland details the face on Mars, but also details the fact that there's an entire complex at Cydonia that geometrically spells out in great detail star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere, which is the Merkabah. So I don't know if Hoagland knew all that stuff, but he was able to delineate the fact that it is a star tetrahedron inscribed in a sphere, and that this, in fact, is the message of Cydonia. That much he clearly contributed. But it is the Merkabah, the counter-rotating fields of the Merkabah, meaning that the small group of Martians 1 million years ago went to Cydonia. They built their complex there. You can either do it as a UFO, or you can do it in a series of complexes, in this case, tetrahedral structures, geometrical structures, and create the counter-rotating fields, and enabling you to travel through time, through space, and through dimensions, which is exactly what they did. They were able to project themselves about 935,000 years into their future, which would be 65,000 years into our past, and they were able to see that there was this empty spot in Atlantis that was ready and waiting, and they said, all right, here we go, let's do it. And they came in without permission, and immediately when they got here, they tried to take over. I mean, that's the way of a total left-brain culture. But they realized quickly, I think, that they were outnumbered. They weren't able to take over. And so they began to at least make a show of trying to get along with us, even though they totally did not understand our feminine ways. And covertly, they began, which is a far better way anyway, to covertly begin to take control. And this is eventually what led to our downfall.
Man, this lines up perfectly with the Star Wars storylines, doesn't it? You think about it, right?
Yep.
But it does. You know, you got the
side.
Jedi and the dark side. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit more about the right brain, left brain stuff? Because you see this in a lot of secret society teachings too. I mean, it's even in the glyph of the Tree of Life. You got the two poles there, and it shows some people show it with a man, or like a picture of a man set against the Tree of Life, and others show like the head. And I've heard other people talk about this, about the nature of the brain. We've talked about it on the show too, but is it that we just need to be able to learn how to sync both sides more in our life, or is it learn how to be more right brain?
That's cutting to the quick right there. That we become not a total left brain culture, because we still do have our emotional base somewhat intact, but we are very, very mental. I mean, I think we all know that. and so what happened when we fell from Atlantis, we moved from unity into separation. Stating it a little bit differently, when you're in unity, you are heart-based. You're living reality, you're seeing reality, experiencing reality as a heart-based, centered individual, and so that's the door to unity right there. But when we fell, we became our mind. We moved from our heart into our head and became our mind. Now, the thing is, the mind is polarized. It sees good and evil. It doesn't see unity. It stands apart from the reality, saying, this isn't me. I'm not part of that. It doesn't see the interconnection to all beings, to all things. And so it's in a constant state of judgment. Now, with the mind, or with the left brain, you can use it to create what you want. But at the same time, because of the polarized nature, you're also going to create exactly what you do not want. And it's going to come sneaking up from behind you. Usually it's going to strike at the most inopportune times. And you're going to eventually learn the hard way the price you pay for being totally mind-based. So it's like I was saying earlier, I've given 2 complete chapters, and another chapter talking about our illusory holographic universe for the sole purpose of showing the mind that looks out of the reality and does not see unity, that sees division and separation everywhere it looks, and believes the polarities, like I'm right and you're wrong. We've heard that one a few times. That's what every, conflict is about.
Mm-hmm.
You believe you make wrong. And so what it leads to is total chaos. It leads to ultimately a race of beings inhabiting a planet that is totally mind-based, polarity consciousness-based, is ultimately going to destroy its planet. And so we're going to do the same thing if we don't wake up and begin to see the unified thread that moves through everything.
Yeah,
and so that underlies
too much science, right? Not enough spirituality, I think, in a lot of ways.
Well, the ancients understood that science and spirituality are one and the same.
Right.
And so not only have we not only linked that, I mean, dislinked that, if you will. We don't really get the connection, but so much of our science is just a lie. It's not true. So much of our science is the attempt by the hidden hand, the cabal, the secret government, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, to keep the masses under control. And so what better way to control the masses than to keep them ignorant and to hoard the sacred knowledge for yourself? They know what all of this stuff is about. They know it logically, at least, but they don't have much of an intuitive heart base to experientially live it. But yet they know what it's all about. This stuff was all taught in the secret mystery schools. It was what was taught back in the Nakal mystery school. It was what was taught in the Egyptian mystery schools, and it's what's taught in the secret societies today, and it's becoming available to everybody. And one of the great ways of seeing it, one of the great ways of seeing through the illusion of polarity consciousness is using the universal language called sacred geometry. A language that's known throughout the cosmos that can be used to talk about absolutely anything. You mentioned the flower of life just in passing back an hour or two ago, and I will submit that contained within the flower of the flower of life, 19 perfectly interwoven circles, is all knowledge. Every single bit of information, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom that's contained within waveform universe. Sounds like a ridiculous statement until you use sacred geometry to unpack the holographic nature of the reality. And one thing we know about holograms, once you begin to see that the universe is a hologram, one thing we know about a hologram, Joe, is that you can take a hologram and cut it into, say, 4 equal pieces. And if you shine a laser through each of those 4 pieces, what you're going to get is a smaller sized version of the whole thing. And so I go to great lengths to show the mind, the only way you can show it, which is logically, that the universe is holographic, implying that you and I are a hologram, implying that you and I are a smaller version of the whole, implying that there's only one spirit, only one creation pattern moving through all life everywhere, that the whole is contained in everyone and in everything, and the way to get to that whole is to stop giving your power away by looking outside and to start looking inside. At a certain point, you begin to realize and discover experientially that you've got everything you need, and it's all contained within you. Because when you go in, you begin to discover experientially your connection to Source through what I like to call your higher self connection. And to me, that's just kind of what this game is all about.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that too. And that's the end game, right? To connect to your higher self so you can understand who you really are. And then all the BS stuff goes away, this whole polarity and everything. And hopefully we can travel the stars. That would be really cool. Sounds like a fantasy, but what if it's a reality? We'll be right back.
Joseph Roop is your host. Pull back the blinds and uncover the truth. This is Lighting the Void Radio.
You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
Right, me old Chinas. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Light in the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology, and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon, and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. Fascinating discussion tonight with our guest, Bob Frissell. If you want to go to his website, it's bobfrissell.com. That is FRISSELL.com. We're discussing this new book, and I want to come back to the Merkabah here, Bob, with you. At the beginning of this broadcast, you talked about there were actually two, something about one internal and one physical. I wonder, how do we get to, so do we have to learn to develop our internal one first before we can ever get to the external one? Does it work in that order?
No, it does not work in that order. But in order to develop the internal Merkabah, you have to be living from your heart. And so, in other words, the integration of left brain, right brain has to occur. The left brain has to know beyond any doubt whatsoever that there is only one creation pattern. There's only one image. There's only one spirit moving throughout all of life. That polarity consciousness is nothing but an illusion. And so it needs to know, in other words, that there's a much greater truth. And so now it's able to communicate with the right brain, the intuitive side of us. And so what we're doing then is opening the doorway to the heart, where we're able to see and perceive the reality on a much deeper level than right and wrong and good and evil and like that. So that's the entrance requirement, if you will, for developing the living Merkabah. If you are a total left brain culture like the Martians were, you've given up. You have no ability to create a living Merkabah field. You have to have your emotional body intact, and everything has to be working in harmony. But you see, the external Merkabah, commonly referred to as a UFO or a flying saucer, does not require emotion. All is required is the cold, calculating mind, the left brain understanding, if you will, of what this is all about, and how to create this. So there are, the UFO, I kind of tend to think that everybody's got that, including us. Don't think for a moment that the hidden hand, the secret government, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they've had this UFO technology for a long, long time. And, for people who have researched the Roswell incident way back in July of 1947, for example, much of the technological advancement that, just kind of like suddenly came out of nowhere came from back engineering the crash disks. And there were numerous crash disks. In my book, I tell of just go into that in a little bit of detail, sure, how not only in Area 51, but also neighboring Area 51 is an area called S4, where allegedly there are 9 hidden hangars, and in each one of those hangars is a recovered UFO, where the back engineering and just how these things work has been going on for a long, long time. And so there is the space program that NASA tells us about. They keep trotting out their tin can type technology, and that can't even make it through the Van Allen radiation belt, 25,000 miles thick above the Earth. And yet we're told that this is how you get to the moon. I don't think so. Yeah, right. So there's that. And there is the real space program, the secret space program. And it's the secret space program that's had UFOs for a long time, and they're way beyond that. And I do mean way, way, way beyond UFOs. So
I think so too. I think a lot of times we want to call everything alien or whatever, but we don't. I mean, we don't know how far ahead they are. They were doing unmanned drones back in the 50s. So. Yeah. Let's take a phone call here. 406 area code. You're on the air with Bob Frissell. Who are you speaking with?
Hey, Joe. It's Jake.
Hi, Jake. What's on your mind?
Well, I was listening to your topic, and I want to know what Bob thinks about CERN then, when it revolves around all this.
I'm sorry, Jake. What do I think about what?
CERN. You know, the Hadron
Collider.
Oh, I don't think anything about it.
Haven't looked into it?
Yeah, I just haven't looked into that at all. I'm sorry. That's, plenty of stuff I have not looked into. Put it that way.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's a good question, though. I mean, at CERN, they're smashing atoms together, teleporting light particles and stuff. And then, they got these big statues of Shiva outside, which is pretty much like the Hindu god of destruction. But it also means a bunch of other things, too, not just that. And, sometimes we just wonder as civilians of what's going on, right? What are they doing this stuff for? What do they really know? So it's a fair question, I think.
Oh, it's more than a fair question. It's the what's going on aspect that in so many ways got me into all of this stuff. Just having that burning desire to want to know what is going on. Yeah. And it just never ends. So,
Jake, do you got any other questions before we let you go? About the Merkabah or inner dimensions or anything? That's it?
Well, sorry, Jake.
A lot of what we're seeing, though, is with the gender movement, too, with the left versus right brain thing. That's the only other point I had. But, yeah, great topic. Love the show tonight.
All right. Thanks for your call. Yeah, he's got a point. We are seeing this kind of movement in the gender equality. Like there's several different genders and stuff going on now. And I kind of think that, as much of a controversial topic as that is, I kind of think it's all just a part of what you were talking about earlier, how consciousness is kind of making bigger movements within the earth and within humanity, regardless of how you feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the roles? So when it comes to the ET races, then what are the roles of the Greys? Because this is the one that we've been talking about since Whitley Strieber's communion. And because there's several different races of ETs, mainly Greys that we know of. Then there's these Whites and all these other different races that we've heard about. But the Greys are the ones that I hear the most about, because some people say they're artificial intelligence. Others say they're the Watchers. I've even heard people call them the Angels. What's your opinion on those, on the Greys?
Well, the first thing I would say about the Greys is that they are a total left brain culture. Originally they were created much like we are, left brain, right brain intact. But the thing is, if you go down that road far enough, you get to a certain point to where you have severed your emotional body. And when you've done that, you've got no emotions. You don't know what love is. You've got no reason to care. And just like the Martians of 1 million years ago, all that's left is domination and control. So the Greys, they understand the reality. And we were talking just a little bit earlier about the back engineering of the crash disks, much of which has come from the Greys. I don't know if all of it has, but a whole lot of it has. My understanding of it is, Joe, is that way back in the day, I would say in the early 20th century, the secret government made contact with the Greys. And originally, they probably thought that these guys are the greatest thing there is, because it's just a source of unlimited new understanding and new technology and the like. But
but soulless beings, though, man, that's scary to think about. No matter how smart they are, I mean, if not soulless, but let's just say totally left-brained, don't really give in to any type of artistic stuff, or spirituality. It's all just logic and science. Mm-hmm. Those kind of people are, that's the Sith, if you ask me. Those are kind of freaky people.
Well, it is, it's not a road that I'd care to go down, and doesn't sound like you'd like to go there either.
No.
So let's just be grateful that we do have our emotional bodies intact, and that's really, really the key. That's our ticket out of the mess that we've created. Absolutely.
Okay. And so you brought up the holographic universe. Now, this is interesting, because most people that I've had on the program have said, yes, the holographic universe is real, or it's a hologram. But when I brought Thomas Campbell on here, who's the author of My Big Theory of Everything. He's a physicist. He says that, we are in a simulation or some type of illusional reality, but that it's not a hologram as a hologram is defined exactly. It's more of like how they explain things. So what I get confused about is if it's a holographic universe, then how come we can feel things like pain and, physical barriers and all that stuff? And it just gets so, honestly, Bob, damn perplexing thinking about it sometimes, because you hear these scientists mouth quantum this and quantum that and holographic this, and they're not really putting things together for me in my mind,
Well, in terms of our everyday living, in a lot of ways, it's a big so what, because we do. Of all the different possibilities within waveform universe, the third dimensional reality, where polarity consciousness is the dominant theme, it gives us an opportunity to experience a whole wave of emotions, a whole range of emotions and different, whatevers. But here on this level, really what the game is about, as far as I can tell, is learning to step out of the illusory aspect of it, meaning the polarity consciousness aspect of it, and realizing that it's only one way of interpreting this reality. So I just use the idea of the holographic universe, not necessarily as a physicist would. I'm not really trying to prove anything. I'm not really trying to prove anything to anybody. What I'm doing is just trying to establish a new paradigm, a new consciousness, a new way of looking at the reality, so that we can step out of continuing our arguing and bickering and wars and literally destroying the planet as a result of that, and see if we can't begin to evolve into something that is really much greater than we've considered ourselves to be in the past, and that we have lived for what seems to be forever. Generation upon generation upon generation has only known polarity consciousness. But there's a brand new window that's opening up right now. I don't know exactly when the opening occurred, but it was sometime, as far as I can tell, within our lifetime, where a new possibility, a new paradigm of consciousness is beginning to present itself. And one of the real key aspects to beginning to integrate and to step into that new level of awareness is on some level recognizing that everything is completely and totally interlinked. And so it's in that context that I speak of the holographic universe. And someone else has to say about it, I don't know.
It's more of like, I get what you're saying. It's more of like a comparison, right? That's more of a model to look at. So I guess I can ask you on a personal level, have you worked on your Merkabah? Like, do you know, and if you have, do you know how far along you are on building this thing? Is that how it works? So we build it one step at a time?
I first learned about the Merkabah way back in 1992. And along with that, I learned about a 17-breath meditation that for years I've given in a workshop, a 4-day workshop that I called the Flower of Life. And what I've done is I've taken that Flower of Life workshop and I've turned it into a video course, which is available on my website. And in that video course called The Flower of Life, and its subtitle is Igniting Your Inner Light, I do teach the 17-breath Merkabah meditation, and along with that, a companion meditation known as the Unity Breath. But along with that, I give all the details on the holographic universe using sacred geometry as the primary tool for showing the mind the holographic universe and the unity of life, because and along with that, all the details on the Earth history, so we can get an understanding of where we were and how, in fact, we have been there in the past, but we gave that along with everything else up when we fell 13,000 years ago, and how we're now now in the process of climbing back. And so when you put this all into its big picture perspective, then it becomes possible to teach this 17 breath Merkabah meditation in a meaningful way. Now, does it mean that once you learn how to do this meditation, you're going to be able to change conscious wavelength, rotate 90 degrees, disappear from this world and reappear in a different dimensional world? Nah, we haven't gotten to that point yet. But the teaching of the 17 breath meditation and all that goes with it is a very, I think, significant a door opener towards moving down and moving into this pathway. So where am I at with it? I'm just a humble person just trying to figure out what it's all about. And yeah, I know a bit more about the Merkabah than certainly people who have never heard about it before, but still, I'm just a babe in the woods.
Honestly, I know you're being humble, but that's most, right? And I still feel like
it is.
It is, yeah. And I still feel like the Merkabah is like one of the greatest secrets, which I don't feel like it should be. I'm kind of upset that it is a secret, but it is, man, like one of the greatest mysteries that's been hidden from us. And it's in everything.
Yes.
On this show, we study everything from magic, mysticism, the occult, science, spirituality, the paranormal, all of it. And all for sure. The one thing I can tell you is that we have consciousness after we die, right? I'm totally convinced of that now.
Yep.
And that we have these different levels of being that people experience after they're dead. Now, if we can I guess put our consciousness in this vessel, so to speak, then we do have the keys. Would we say that we have the keys to immortality, so to speak? If we can travel without dying and losing our consciousness again?
Yeah, great question. Glad you brought it up. First of all, the key to immortality is not necessarily living in a body forever, because at some point there's always some higher world to ascend to. And so if you were limited to this third dimensional body, at some point it would become a trap. One of the real keys, if not the real key to immortality, is never again having a break in consciousness. So remembering who you are always, 50,000 years from now, as opposed to the way we've been doing it for at least the last 13,000 years. And that is, when we die, we do it in a very, very asleep manner. When we leave this world through death, what we do is we do move into one of the lower overtones of the fourth dimension, probably about the third overtone of the fourth dimension. But when we get there, we don't seem to remember where we came from or have any of the awareness of our past lifetimes or any of the rest of that stuff. And then when the time is right, we cycle back through reincarnation and are reborn into a baby's body and go through the same thing over and over again, each time not bringing the memory with us. So this reincarnation thing is a very, very slow, asleep way of doing it. Eventually, it does lead somewhere, but it's taken us at least 13,000 years to begin to open our eyes just even a little bit, to begin to open our eyes enough to begin to realize that there are two alternatives to physical death as we know it, and each is a function of consciousness, leaving this world in a much more awake state. One is called resurrection, where with resurrection you do die, but you do it in a much more, if it makes sense, in a much more awake state, and you're able to reform your light body on the other side, and at that point use it to travel into the higher worlds. And when I say higher worlds, I'm speaking specifically of either the 10th, 11th, or 12th overtone of the fourth dimension. These are the worlds into which we are headed. And at some point, we're gonna end up there. But the other way of getting there is through ascension. And with ascension, you don't die at all. You at that point have mastered the ability to change your conscious wavelength, to make the 90-degree rotation, in other words, the activated living Merkabah field, and disappear in a ball of light, bringing your body with you, reappearing in the higher dimensional world, bringing your body with you, just as real there as you are here. And I'm quite certain that that is where we are headed. How long is it going to take us to get there? Who knows?
Wow. Just to even think about that being possible would be cool, because the whole idea of reincarnation, it's not really death that scares me, Bob, not anymore. Cause we move on beyond that. I think it's the loss of...
There's no such thing as death. Death is a delusion, just as everything else in this illusory holographic world is. No such thing as death.
I think it's the loss of the identity, or maybe some people call the ego. Like you're no longer
exactly
that.
Yeah,
that's what scares.
That's what you let go of.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we're holding on to that. That's the whole problem.
But don't worry, you're going to grab another one when you come back through reincarnation.
Yeah.
You just don't bring the memory of having been here before. And so that carries a lot of baggage with it, a whole lot of baggage. We get to make the same mistakes over and over again.
And then we get in that karma cycle, right? Do you believe in that as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's karma is your unfinished business is going to come back to you. And so here again, it's like, we can talk about the cosmic, the universal forces of light versus dark, Archangel Michael versus Lucifer, that sort of thing, that the job of the light is to do everything it can to bring us, to evolve us as quickly as possible, to move us into the light. And that's balanced by the forces of darkness, which does everything it can to keep us stuck and to keep us, to keep us in that rut. But as I've suggested earlier, that the two are actually working together, viewed from unity consciousness. But you see, we got the same thing going on inside of each and every one of us. We've got our light side doing everything it can to move us into the light as quickly as possible. We've got our dark nature doing everything it can to keep us stuck in fear and limitation. But once you learn to realize from a viewpoint of unity that here again, these two seemingly opposite forces are actually working together, and they're serving as timing agents. So once you learn to align with and to harmonize with the darkness rather than resist it, this is where you can begin to make some real movement. And that's what my breath alchemy technique is based upon. Totally, completely based upon that. Learning to harmonize with the darkness within you instead of resisting it. And so instead of being at war with it, by making peace with it, you're able to take its energetic component and transmute it into the light. And it's very simply. We all have certain factors within our awareness that we are clear are contributing to our sense of well-being. But we also have factors within us that we are quite certain are not contributing to our sense of well-being, very much contributing to our detriment. And if only we could find a way to get rid of them. Well, that's only because we're stuck in polarity consciousness. But once you learn to align with the darkness, to realize that it's not actually out to get you, it's just trying to get your attention to give you an opportunity to revisit its energetic component. So instead of making war with it, you can learn to make peace with it, and in so doing, transmute the energy into light. And so that is that's the whole idea behind the breath alchemy technique.
Fantastic.
And which you access through your breath and learning how to harmonize with what you're feeling in your body.
Wow.
But I mean, this is all played out on all these different levels.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Look, we're at the last part of the show here. I want to ask you guys, if you can, give us some support on Lighting the Void. You can go donate at the website. You can also use the Amazon portal or grab some swag. We'll be right back with our guest tonight, Bob Frissell. BobFrissell.com is the website for reference. Stay with us.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Root, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
I think by now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now, this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves strip bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand 3 truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in 1 business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Bob Frissell is our guest tonight. Fascinating discussion. We'll be back next week too after tonight, Monday night, 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight, every single night. Well, Monday through Friday here on the Fringe FM. And Bob, your book is it's probably the coolest title book I've ever heard. Actually, or one of the coolest title books I've ever heard that you got is titled "Nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are." And you got a really cool picture of the pyramids and a UFO there, and you wouldn't think it, right? Like, you wouldn't think you would talk about the Merkabah in this book, but literally in this book, you talk about everything there is. I mean, we've just kind of brushed the surface of things tonight. I haven't really got too deep into things, just kind of really brushed over most of it, haven't we?
Well, in order to really get into it, what I discovered, it takes about 4 days at least. And I for years, gave this in a 4-day workshop that I called the Flower of Life. I'm no longer giving that workshop live, but what I have done, Joe, is I've put that workshop onto video. And so it's all there. It's available on my website. I call it the Flower of Life Workshop, the subtitle being Igniting Your Inner Light. And if anybody really wants to get into this stuff, well, that's the place to go. And my book too. Again, we're just scratching the surface on what's in the book, for sure.
Well,
but that's all you can do in 2 or 3 hours.
I am curious about your experiences with this. So have you had any like truly profound, I know you have, and if you have, I'd like to hear about it, a truly profound consciousness experience, a breakthrough experience with your breath alchemy system? Because look, I practiced a thing called just the fourfold breath, and that was just a breathing method where we were taught to, inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 4. It was like looking at it like a square. And I was like, well, this is boring. This isn't going to work. It's just breathing. But when I really focused on it, what I started feeling in my body was my energy change as it started balancing out. And you talk about a whole different set of breath work. Is this the same as like what people call like pranayama or anything like that, or is it a little different?
I can tell you a little bit about breath alchemy. The way I teach it is through a series of private sessions where I'm one-on-one coaching the person through, first showing them a breathing rhythm that I call circular breathing. Where there is no pause, the inhale and the exhale are connected, and it's very much an inhale-oriented breath, where you consciously, firmly, yet very smoothly and evenly pull on the inhale, and without pause, just do nothing on the exhale except just relax. So there's no control there at all. And what it does is begins the movement of an enormous amount of energy through your body. The energy specifically is prana, which is life force energy, which is source energy. It's the very energy which makes life possible. Without prana, there is no life. And so we do take in prana primarily with the air we breathe, but also with food and sunlight and whatever. But the fact is that we take it in. Our breathing, virtually every human being on the planet's breathing is very, very inhibited relative to what it could be. And so as a result, most people are taking in enough prana, enough life force energy, yes, to keep the body alive, but not nearly enough to begin to discover that within them, they not only have an internal healing mechanism that's all contained within, but they also have a direct connection to source energy through the prana, and through that, the connection to the higher self becomes established. And then with that, let the fun begin, because you're discovering you are discovering a whole new world of possibility, and it's all contained within you. Now, we were talking about a little bit earlier about psychedelics and how not only is it used throughout all the indigenous cultures and has been for a long time, as well as the mystery schools, but it was initiated into our culture in the 1960s. And some people had amazing trips, and some people had some pretty bad ones too. But I've had so many breath alchemy clients tell me, well, this is just like taking a psychedelic. The only thing is you don't have to take anything. You discover
Really?
that it's all contained within you. And so that's what they're really talking about, is the spiritual aspect that you get with the higher self connection, when you begin to experience directly that you are, you might say, all things, and that there's only one spirit moving through all life, and that spirit is you, and you are it, and it is you. So there's a very spiritual, mystical opportunity that just is boundless, is endless. But with that being said, in a perhaps much more mundane way, but in many ways a much more useful and much more powerful way for at least most people, is the healing capability that's contained within it. Because once you get this prana moving through your body, the other thing it does, in addition to greatly enhancing your ability to feel that energy, it also begins to bring up packets of stuck energy that you've been suppressing because of make wrong, because of polarity consciousness. And so it's all this stuff that you and I have been making wrong and then trying our very best to avoid dealing with. We've become very good at suppressing and doing it on an energetic level, because the body is just energy, it's just vibration. And so everything has this energetic or vibratory component, and something that we've been making wrong, its vibratory component does not feel good because of the make wrong. We spend the rest of our lives then trying to avoid feeling that, trying our very best to keep it suppressed in our body. And if you don't learn how to deal with that stuff in more conscious ways, it's going to start dealing with you. And I have no doubt whatsoever that that is where all illness and all disease and all unpleasantness in every form that you can think of, ranging from PTSD to chronic fatigue to allergies and breathing difficulties, it all comes from there.
And what did you call it? You said
Alchemy,
it was called the macron, or what is it called?
Well, it's a term that I kind of use. Anytime that you insist, a make wrong, my definition of a make wrong is any time that you insist that something in your reality, be it a person or an experience or your job or whatever it might be, that this person is bad and wrong. You are right, this person is wrong. It's a judgment, or as I call it, a make wrong. Or if your job, if only I had a better job, or if only I had a better relationship. So you're making somebody or something wrong every time you do that. And every time you do that, there's the mental component. This thing really is bad and wrong. In our polarized state, we've come to really believe our make wrongs. But what we also have, the moment we make something wrong, is the energetic component, which, because the mental component has been made wrong, and it's usually a lot of energy, negative energy put into it, the feeling or the energetic component can only be an unpleasant feeling. And because we don't know how to deal with unpleasant feelings, we do everything we can to try and keep it suppressed, to keep it out of our conscious awareness. But that's when it starts coming back and biting you in ways that you really wish it wouldn't. And so,
like it hurts it hurts your life, your relationships, and you say things you don't mean to say, or you get depressed, or you get anxious, Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Keeps you stuck in your stuff. So breath alchemy, in addition to the spiritual component, is an absolute way to integrate those disharmonic energies into your sense of well-being, so that the stuff that has been controlling and running your life just starts to clear up. And so the significance of that is that leads you back to the spiritual component, where you begin to see there's really much, and live experientially, that there's so much more to this reality than what you thought there was, because you were so stuck in make wrong consciousness that you couldn't get beyond that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you know what's kind of funny I find about this is all ironic is literally traveling the stars or developing our Merkabah or light bodies could actually, and correct me if I'm wrong here, come down to the simple fact of allowing ourselves to breathe and tap into our own energy, which is something that's very natural to us for some reason that we've forgotten about.
As I've said, as I suggested earlier in the program, everything is a function of consciousness. And what it's ultimately about is discovering experientially, as opposed to reading about it or believing it. I mean discovering experientially that you've got everything you need, and it's all contained within you. So breath alchemy then is the technique for discovering that, in fact, you do have everything you need, and it's all contained within you. And it's the real key also to making this 17-breath Merkabah meditation much more real in your life, because the Merkabah only works when you're living out of your heart-based unity rather than your mind-based polarity. Don't work too well that way.
Then let's look at the really big picture. Let's ask a really big question here then, Bob. Mm-hmm. What is it all for? What is this whole thing about? Is it really just about having an experience, right? Let's say consciousness got bored, like we were talking about earlier, and it thought about something like, I don't know, love, right? And it's just a concept. Did it create life so it could live the concept? Like, what is this whole thing about then, if it's just a state of falling and rising?
Sure. I've heard the saying that love is the only thing that's real. That infinite consciousness, meaning love, the true you, is the only thing there really is. Everything else is an illusion. And so, the love energy, the unity energy, is the unifying energy that permeates throughout all of life, throughout all of the waveform universes, and it's the thing that makes life real. Without it, we've got nothing. And so the ultimate thing that you give up when you go so far down the road of becoming your mind is exactly that. Now, thankfully, we haven't gotten there yet, but we're getting kind of close. We've gotten kind of close. And we got to realize that, it's like you're driving and you lose control of your car and there's a big cliff and you realize that, wow, you just narrowly missed going down that cliff, but you ain't out of the woods yet because one of your tires is hanging over. But you can very carefully navigate your way back to safety if you reverse and start going back and rediscovering who you really are and what it's really about. So
if someone was to start with this work, right? Let's go back to that. And they said, okay, Bob, I really want to get started with this. I want to learn how to do this. Do you think that they should just go straight into your coursework or grab the book first or go into the Flower of Life training?
Well, the obvious thing, Joe, is to just grab a copy of the book.
Read first.
And so if the book really resonates with you, then the next step is to take a look at my website. And on my website, you can find all about learning about the Merkabah through the Flower of Life workshop and learning all about breath alchemy, which I describe in detail in the book too. But the breath alchemy is taught in one-on-one coaching sessions, which I give like we're speaking tonight on Skype. So you can be anywhere. You can be in Arkansas or Great Britain or California or anywhere, and we can do the work together. But you see, the entrance requirement is your willingness. And so to me, that's all a function of whether or not this stuff resonates with you. And I think really the perfect place to start is with my book. That's virtually everybody that I work with has begun there, and it just serves as a really, really nice foundation, I think. It gives us a good platform from which to proceed.
Well, last night with my guest, we were talking about a guy named Ram Dass, who I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
yeah, sure.
Sometimes we talk about psychedelics on the show, and he according to a rumor, that he can take psychedelics, right, and nothing changes for him. Like, this guy's actually living in these other dimensions, so to speak. And I wonder sometimes, like, are we surrounded by people that are walking around amongst us now that are actually living in other dimensions, or do they actually leave? Like what you and I were discussing earlier with their physical body. Is it like that? Is it that kind of a separate thing?
Well, as I said earlier, every dimension or every universe that has ever been created is passing right through the very room in which you are sitting,
Right.
and they're all interlinked. And the only difference between one and the next one is wavelength. And I think on certain occasions, perhaps the veils can lift enough to give not everybody, but perhaps just a select few of a very brief, quick view into other worlds. And if you are ever so fortunate to, in some way or manner, maybe catch a ride on a UFO or whatever, to be able to visit a different dimensional world, you would know without any doubt whatsoever that there's a whole lot more to this reality than what appears to the five senses, that there's a whole lot more than we've been led to believe, that we've been grown up and brought into living and thinking and believing and all the rest of that. So again, everything is a function of consciousness, and life is just an amazing game. Once you start lifting the veils and who knows, start moving through the dimensional worlds, well, plenty of life forms are able to do that. And I don't think we're going to be too far into the future where we're going to learn how to do that ourselves, or more accurately, remember how to do that for ourselves. And I think that's what we're moving into. So, and again, I give all the details of just my thoughts on that and what I pieced together. That's all in the book. So
now, do you do daily breathing practices yourself, daily meditation, daily focus, or because I
Yes.
imagine you research, you take time to research as well as do these things too. Do you do it like first thing in the morning, or how many times a day do you do it?
the answer is absolutely yes. I breathe every day. I am giving myself breath alchemy sessions all the time, and I meditate twice a day. And to me, that's just what keeps it all together. I would turn into a pumpkin without the breath alchemy and without the meditation. I promise you, I would be a pumpkin. And
Yeah.
I don't want to be a pumpkin.
Well,
I do what works. I'm not trying to be spiritual or holier than thou or any of the rest of
Sure.
that. What I do is very practical. I do it because it works.
Yeah, I
If it
understand
didn't work,
that.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, you seem like the kind of guy that kind of like Bob Monroe was, he just kept looking into things and trying things until he figured out what was real about it, and get a bit, I guess you could say, and don't take this wrong, but a bit obsessive about trying to find the truth about something. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually, because that's the whole reason why I created the show, because I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty good addiction to have.
It is, but it does piss some people off sometimes. I can tell you that. When you're digging for truth, because people don't like their paradigms to be messed with,
Oh yeah, I understand. So not everybody is ready to hear this, but when you are, there's no turning back. It's just like when I first got turned on to this through Alan Watts, I just couldn't put that book down. It was my constant companion, and it was a little pocket book, so I could stick it in my back pocket, and it went everywhere I went.
Now, didn't Alan Watts die from alcohol poisoning, or was it suicide, or what happened to him?
I don't know. I know he died. I don't know how or why.
I think it was alcohol, right? But that guy was a genius. I loved listening to him talk about life and all of that. So so Alan Watts was the guy, right, that we mentioned before. He's the guy that inspired you.
That's right. That's what first did it. That was my door opener. It ignited an inner light that has continued to burn very, very brightly to this day.
Well, I can tell you, he's inspired a lot of people, but you've probably would make him proud, actually, if he could come down here and tell you because Alan Watts was one of the first people I ever heard say, if you want to figure out like what you're here to do, find out what you love doing and what really makes you happy, and do it. I think he said something about like, if you had all the money in the world and you wasn't worried about money, what would you do? And then he said, then do that.
Yeah. Sounds good.
It sounds easy enough, but he made things sound so simple in the way he talked. And I get why he would inspire you. And I really I really do appreciate you coming on the show. And, I hope that some of our listeners will grab your book and get into this and give me a little feedback, and I'll probably get it myself and you know, hey, if I can travel other dimensions by focusing on my breath and remembering who I really am and where I came from, and learn how to travel the stars from right where I sit, because there really is no out there. Everything's right here. Well, that's all we need to do then, isn't it? I mean, the radio show's over, you know?
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good. Joe, I want to thank you very much for having me on. It's been a delight, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation together. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And we'll do it again sometime. Now, you guys, we'll be back next week. If you're listening live, please stay tuned for the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. Also, we're going to be running a contest all next week. Anybody that donates $10 or more is going to get a specific Void Walker. This thing's going to be killer. I'm still designing it. It's going to be a Void Walker hoodie. Only one is going to be made. And as we get out of here, I do got to say the show is produced by the Fringe FM. Please don't copy this without written permission, especially on YouTube. I want to give Pacho a shout out, Don, Jeremy Scott, Eric Markham, Dennis, Barbara Charlton, all of you guys, our sponsors, all of you guys in the Fringe FM chat. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys Monday night, same time, same channel. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.